All right. And today I have Mr. Brett Wade across from me. What's going on, Brett?
Hey, what's up, Russ? Doing good. Glad to be here, and look forward to doing this interview with you on your podcast.
Yeah, man. We're going to talk some trash and learn about Brett and the bands he's in and whatever else we can think of.
All right, sounds like a plan.
All right. Well, for the people that don't know you, where's old Brett Wade originally from?
So I was born close to Philadelphia, Pennsylvania, as a kid, and then my dad went back in the Army. He had a break in service while he was going to college after Vietnam War was over. He had been in the Army before. And so once he went back in the Army, we just started moving around every couple of years. So growing up as an Army brat, we lived a lot of different places. New Jersey, at Fort Dix, Fort Knox, Kentucky, Frankfurt, Germany. We were over there for about 3 years. And then we ended up in the Washington, D.C. Area, Northern Virginia. Is where I went to junior high and high school.
And you got two other brothers, right?
That's correct, yeah. I got two younger brothers. They helped me start guerrilla warfare back in 2004.
Okay.
And then we played our first show 2005. And one of them, he lives down in North Carolina now and it's just doing the family thing. And the other one, he still lives here in Tennessee, but he's in Antioch, Lebanon, Tennessee.
Cool. So you guys are pretty tight growing up?
Yeah, we were a pretty tight family.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Well, I was going to ask you when guerrilla warfare started, but you said it was 2004. And I was also going to ask you what the first show was. I know that answer.
Yeah, you were there.
What was the what was the first show? What was the date, and who was it with?
So the first show ever with guerrilla warfare was in Nashville, Tennessee, at the Muse on 4th Avenue. It was February 20th of 2005 with a hardcore band from Texas called Die Young. And there was another hardcore band from Evansville, Indiana. I can't remember what their name is now. They were just kind of like a regional band or whatever, but I don't think they're around anymore.
Yeah, I don't remember. I remember, of course, Die Young from Texas. That was a good show, actually. You know.
Yeah, that was a lot of fun.
Rest in peace, the Muse.
Yeah.
For the people out there that don't know, when did you come up with the name Guerrilla Warfare, and what's the meaning behind it?
So I had actually come up with that band name probably in 1998 or 1999 while I was in the Army, and I was out doing some training out in the field for about a month, living in a tent, and so you got a lot of time on your hands, you're bored, and I was just, messing around doing some artwork, and I just had that idea of guerrilla warfare stuck in my head. I was a big Planet of the Apes movie fan, the original movie, when I was a kid, and so it was kind of a play on words with the military term guerrilla warfare, but then spelling it like an animal gorilla as kind of a tribute to the Planet of the Apes movie series or whatever. I just thought that was kind of a cool name, and I used to just draw it all the time, and I'm like, if I ever get to start a metal band or hardcore band or punk band someday down the road, that would be a cool band name for it.
I mean, it is a good name. It's lasted a long time.
It has, man. Yeah, we've been a band. Geez, I guess this is 20 years now. You know?
Do you guys ever get confused from the band out of Louisville named Guerrilla Warfare?
There are some people that are like, "Oh, I've heard of your band before," and I was listening to you on Spotify or YouTube or something, and I like this song from you or whatever. But it's actually a song from the other Guerrilla Warfare band that spells their name slightly different from up in Louisville.
And I think they're a little different style than you guys.
Yeah, like I said, they're heavy band, kind of hardcore, but they kind of have some like rap influences in there too, kind of a little Rage Against the Machine-ish or something, But great band,
Yeah, I have a friend in Kansas City, and he was like, "Whoa, you guys are coming out here?" This was like last summer, and I was like, or a couple summers ago, and I was like, "No, you're not touring with so and so." I was like, "No, that's not us, man." Like, I guess there was a band called the Dropout Kings or something, and the band Guerrilla Warfare was on tour with them. I was like, "Nah, it's a different Guerrilla Warfare." He's like, "Oh, me and my son were gonna come out to that show."
Yeah, something like that happened with me. I think it was last summer or the summer before. That Louder Than Life festival. It's in Louisville. The other Guerrilla Warfare from Louisville was on that, and I had a bunch of people that were like, "Oh man, you guys are playing Louder Than Life." I'm like, I had several people. I'm like, no, that's a different band that has a similar name to ours, but that's not us.
Yeah, when Guerrilla Warfare played with Agnostic Front in 2019, later the next year in 2020, like right before COVID, the Guerrilla Warfare was playing with Agnostic Front in Louisville. And I was like, man, I wonder if they think it's the same band, you know?
Yeah, yeah, that's possible.
For someone who's never heard of guerrilla warfare, how would you describe the sound?
So initially we were strictly a hardcore band. The goal was to be like an old school East Coast style hardcore band.
Correct.
And over the years, I would say over the last maybe 5 to 10 years, there's still kind of a hardcore band, but there's definitely, I would say, we've kind of leaned more towards being a metal band now. Just with the influences of the members that we've had in the band over the last 5 to 10 years, they've just been more metalheads that have been joining the band.
And I know for a while, I mean, you were predominantly just like a hardcore guy, old school punk rock, and nowadays it seems like you're more. I mean, you're still into that, but you more now. More, it seems like you listen to a lot more metal now. Is that because of the influences in the band, and that's what you're like, kind of maybe drawing some ideas from, or is that not the case?
I've always been a big metalhead too. It's just there was a period in my life where I just was diehard, only wanted to listen to hardcore and punk for a long time, and so I still liked metal, but I just wasn't into it. And then as I've gotten older now, I've just gone back. Like I say, I still love hardcore, always will, and punk, but I guess I've gotten older. I've gotten more back into metal, I guess more.
Yeah, and I mean, I think we're all like that as well. I like having there's some people that are just strictly diehard metalheads or strictly diehard hardcore heads, and that's all they listen to. But it's cool to see both sides of that, And I was going to ask that question. Guerrilla Warfare started out more of a hardcore / kind of punky band, more metal now, but. I was in the early days of the guerrilla warfare.
Yes, you were. Yes, you were.
And then I was in the later days. Yeah,
you got to be in it during both eras.
So what inspires you? Like, what gives you inspiration to write your lyrics?
I would just say music in general. Great music. Like I said, when you hear another band that's making great music, great art, great lyric writing, great production. That just inspires you to say, man, I want to keep doing this. I want to try to make, my contribution to music and be as a creative person. I want to have my contribution to the music scene and to making good music and writing and recording good songs and being a good band,
As far as your lyrics, like what's your lyrics, what influences your lyrics?
So I would say a wide variety of things, everything from current events to just what I see going on in the world today, movies, books, religious beliefs, the Bible, being interested in other things, not just my own religious beliefs, but also seeing like different things in like other religions or the occult. Interests me, even though I don't practice that type of stuff. It's still fascinating. So just a lot of that stuff it catches my interest and then inspires me to write, stuff, and then concepts too, like the concept of good and evil.
Yeah.
And just the world, how it seems like it's always at odds with each other. There's always opposing forces, for good and evil, and each side thinks that, hey, what we consider the bad guys, they think that they're the good guys or whatever, So just things like that really interest me and inspire me to write lyrics.
And it might be more than one, but which song is there about? Isn't there a guerrilla warfare song about Planet of the Apes?
Yeah, there is. On our last album, it was called Crash Landing. I'd always wanted to. Since the band name was kind of inspired by my love of those old Planet of the Apes movies, I'd always wanted to write a song that had lyrics that kind of had some of the elements of the movie in there. So that was my one chance to write a song that kind of paid tribute or reference to that movie.
That's pretty cool. Yeah, and then I know you guys have a lot of new music now, and when I had Josh on the podcast, he let me listen to instrumental of one of the newer songs, and it's pretty epic. I enjoyed it. I don't know the name of the song, but it was really good. I know you guys had a song called Devil's Night.
Yes.
And what was that song about?
So that song, I guess that was kind of inspired by like apocalyptic type themes,
Okay.
like end of the world, the Book of Revelations, that type thing about just the going back to the struggle between good and evil, and that would be like the culmination of it all, like when Satan actually would come down to Earth and basically rule over Earth for the final 7 years before things come to an end or a new beginning, however you want to look at it.
Gotcha.
And just like how it would be kind of like hell on earth for that time period, and just that there would still be people trying to resist or fight back or escape, hide out, whatever they had to do to just try to survive and stay alive.
Is that one staying in your current lineup of songs?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
that's still definitely one of our main songs we like to play, and
It's a good one, man. It's a little banger you got there.
appreciate it.
Take it back a couple years, probably about back in the earlier days, when Matt was in the band. He had written a song, and I could get it. I might have the name wrong, but October's.
October's Lost.
Is that about? That was about a buddy of his, right?
Yeah, that was about
Okay.
a close friend of his that was murdered back in our old hometown there in the D.C. area, Northern Virginia. He had gotten into, like I said, our neighborhood we grew up in is kind of rough. A lot of gangs and drugs and things like that, a lot of crime. And they had been friends since probably before kindergarten, since they were like 4 or 5 years old. Grew up together, and then as they got to be teenagers, growing up in the neighborhood we were, there's a lot of bad influences and a lot of opportunities to get into drugs and gangs and things like that. And it was my brother Matt's friend Luke, and he ended up getting in with the wrong people, selling drugs, doing drugs, and I don't know if it's gang related or just a drug deal gone bad, but they end up they suspect it was this one gang or whatever, but they, put him down on his knees, put a gun to the back of his head, and shot him, execution style, murdered him.
Wow.
Yeah, and he was only either 18 or 19 when that happened.
Damn.
So yeah, that's what that song was about.
Yeah, I knew it was something like that. I didn't know the exact story behind it, but now that you had said that, yeah, that does sound familiar. So, with you guys growing up in that kind of a neighborhood, and so what did you guys do to keep you guys away from that? Like, what did you guys do to stay busy?
So I would say for me, one thing that was like a saving grace or kept me out of trouble. I've always loved music, but back then, like in my high school days or whatever, me and my brothers all grew up doing sports.
Okay.
And so our father was big time into sports. He was a wrestling coach, and he got me and my brothers all into the sport of wrestling. And wrestling is not like just a casual sport, not knocking on other sports or whatever, but if you really want to have a chance to be good at the sport of wrestling, you have to completely dedicate yourself to it. It's like being a fighter or a gladiator. You practice 6 days a week. Like Sunday is your only day off once if you're on the school team for your high school, at least where we come from.
Mm-hmm.
And then there is no off season. When the school team is done or the school season is done, it's a winter sport. The more serious people, they'll join like a travel team or a club team, and then you'll travel up and down the East Coast. And so the sport of wrestling is what personally kept me out of trouble. Because like I said, both of our next door neighbors were in gangs and drug dealers. One of them ended up dead. The other ended up in prison while he was like 16 for armed robbery. And I was just watching all these people that we grew up with going, getting killed or getting, beat up really bad or going to jail and stuff like that. And so just being heavily involved in sports and weightlifting and wrestling, and that just there's no time to get into trouble.
Yeah, that's awesome. Just keep yourself busy so you don't become a product of that area. And did Matt and Jeff also wrestle?
Yeah, they started even younger than me. I started wrestling. My dad got me into it in 5th grade.
Wow.
And yeah, Jeff started in 3rd grade. And then my youngest brother, Matt, he started before he was even in kindergarten. He was coming to practices and things like that. And my dad started a youth wrestling program so that my younger brothers would have a wrestling club to be a part of. Because when we moved to that area of Northern Virginia and Washington, D.C., there was no youth wrestling club at the time. So my dad, having been a high school wrestling coach, before at several different schools, he went to the Boys and Girls Club that was there by my high school, and he asked them if he could start a youth wrestling program.
Okay.
And so the first year, I think they only had maybe 12 kids. The second year that they had grown to like 24, 25 kids.
Wow.
Every year it kept growing bigger and bigger. And finally they outgrew the building.
Wow.
And they ended up going, the Boys and Girls Club built a new, bigger facility. And then by the time it was done, after like the 5th or 6th season, they had close to 100 kids.
Wow, that's awesome.
Yeah, and so my dad was the coach and started that program initially for my brothers, but everybody else in the community benefited from it.
Now, is it still there? Is it still going? Do you know?
From what I understand, it is
Yeah.
still there. I mean, obviously, it's my dad passed away back in December, so he hadn't been involved with it for quite a few years. But
Okay.
there was other coaches when it grew big. They had to bring in other volunteer coaches. And from what I understand, they kept it running, for years after, and hopefully it's still going.
That's awesome, man. That's awesome. Kids need things to do, and that's awesome that he did that. So, you started the band with your brothers. And your Jeff was on the drums.
Yep.
Matt was on vocals.
Yep.
And was that how you always wanted it, or did you want to do vocals at that point too, or?
Initially, I planned for myself to be doing what I'm doing now, writing lyrics and being the vocalist. I just happened to play rhythm guitar also. Mm-hmm. And after my brother Matt graduated from high school, I was trying to talk him into moving out here to Tennessee, and offered to let him live with me for free. I'm like, hey, I'm trying to start a band here soon. You could join the band, maybe be a bass player or something. And, he ended up waiting about a year to move out here. And once he moved out here, I had a couple other people that I was trying to form the band with initially too. And he's like, I could try playing bass, but I've never played an instrument before. What if I was to do the vocalist? He's like, you play guitar. He's like, you could be like a second vocalist or backup vocalist and play guitar. And so I wouldn't have let anybody else have that spot that I had initially planned for myself as vocalist, but I'm like, all right, since you're my brother and I do want you to be in the band. And when he moved out here, I let him take that spot. And, but I was like, I still want to help write lyrics, so we could split the lyric writing 50-50. And for a while, that's how it was. And then when Jeff moved out here, he had a little bit of experience playing drums. And so he bought a drum kit, and then, that's how it got started,
Yeah, I remember the good old days. I was at work one day. Me and Matt worked at Converges, and I really didn't know Matt really at the time. He just knew of me because of Taken Under, and he came up to me one day. He's like, "Hey, man, we're looking for a bass player. Me and my brothers. You want to give it a shot?" And I'm like, "Sure, I guess." And that was all she wrote. Then it was the four of us. I was like 3 brothers and Russ.
Yeah.
We had some good times back then.
Yes, we did, man. Lots of shows.
So you said your some of your lyrics are from religion and stuff. And I remember the early days of Guerrilla Warfare. There was a time people people had said, and I don't really remember the whole story, but people said that Guerrilla Warfare was a Christian band.
Yes.
Was that what the start was to be, or is that just because it's just a label it got?
I was a big fan of the band, of a lot of Christian hardcore metal bands like No Innocent Victim, Living Sacrifice, 6 Feet Deep, who else? Focal Point, Training for Utopia, Zao, a lot of those type of bands. And so I was like, hey, I knew I wanted to start a band, but I'm like, whether it's a regular band or a Christian band, that'd be, cool either way. And so, some of the lyrics, maybe not all of them, were influenced by, our faith or whatever. Yeah. So, yeah, I think maybe that's where some of that came from. And we were big fans of like Face Down Records, Strike First Records, bands like Disciple, XAD, and No Innocent Victim and stuff. So, as Face Down Records was growing and stuff, and we started booking a lot of those bands from that label when they would come through Nashville, and we'd play shows with them. And I was buying pretty much everything that they put out on the record label. They were putting out some really good hardcore punk and metal back then, and metalcore. So I was like, hey, it'd be kind of cool if we could ever get a chance to get signed to that label, or even just, like I said, help the label out by booking their bands and playing shows with them, So we were having fun, doing that.
That era in that time, man, those Christian bands back then, man, there were some good bands. I mean, all their music was good, but I think that time it was like the big boom for Christian hardcore and Christian metal, whatever it was. We play with a lot of great bands, great
Yeah.
bands. You know,
Oh yeah.
you guys played. Um, what was the Christian Fest up north?
Oh, Cornerstone.
Did you guys play that one
We
year?
did, yeah, 1 year.
Yeah,
We played that summer of 2007,
really.
and that was really, really fun experience. You know, getting to play. It was, basically about 10,000 people that come out to that. They've got, I don't know, probably 8 to 10 or 12 different stages going on. They got big stages, medium stages, little stages, and so there's probably 5 or 6 bands playing at any given time,
Yeah.
so you could sit there and just bounce around to the different stages and check out all kinds of great bands. So some of them more well known, some of them more underground, but just a lot of talented musicians and bands.
And that's when you guys were signed to Wounded Records.
That's correct.
Correct. Yeah. The Battlefields, is that the album that was on
Yep.
there?
That was just probably a few months after that album come out, our first full length.
Yeah, it's funny that people that were back in I know some people that wouldn't listen to it or listen to bands because they were considered a quote unquote Christian band, but some bands that didn't say they were a Christian band, these same people would listen to it, and I'm just like, if you guys only knew, and like August Burns Red, they're huge, and a lot of people didn't know that they started off as a Christian band, and I don't know if they consider themselves a Christian band now, but there was some good music back there. I mean, Comeback Kid, look at them,
Yeah.
That's awesome. So what song that you currently have out, like of guerrilla warfare stuff, is it like the most meaningful to you?
Like that's already released or whatever, or are you saying like the newer ones?
Or even newer one, just in general, yeah.
Man, there's
several.
That's a tough choice.
Yeah.
There's like Usurper means a lot to me because, like I said, that one that you were asking me earlier about stuff that influences me. One that I forgot to mention is my time in the military and combat tours overseas and things like that I've seen. That's another big influence on my lyric writing and what song topics I write about.
Yeah.
That song Usurper off our Violent State album. That is written specifically about being in the military, being at war over in combat, and the things that you see over there. That one means a lot to me. Our old bass player, Stephen Holy, even though he was the bass player at the time, he actually wrote a good part of the guitar riffs on that too, like the main riff, and then he showed it to our guitar player at the time, Brian Birch, and then he kind of tweaked it and added some of his own riffs to it, but he's still in the Army. He was in the Army when he was in our band the whole time, and when he wrote that, and so that one means a lot to me.
Steve's a amazing guitar player. I had seen him play guitar, and he was really good at guitar. You said he's still in the military.
Steve Holy, yes, our old bass player. Yeah.
You have Steve in the band.
Because Steve Bailey's our current lead
guitar
guitar player, and he's an amazing, talented musician too. So
that's awesome, man. Yeah, there's
both great guys.
Oh yeah. I didn't really know Steve, the first Steve. I didn't really know him, but I've met him every once in a while. But that's awesome, man. Let's see here. What have we got? So guerrilla warfare over the last 20 years has played with some heavy hitters.
Yes,
you guys have played with some amazing bands. Who's probably one of the best bands that you got to play with that maybe a bucket list band?
Man, there's been several, but like I said, we played several shows with Agnostic Front. They were, like I said, childhood heroes growing up in the DC area. They were huge. So getting to play shows and open with them, I think we've played with them 4 or 5 different times.
Wow,
that was really good. We got to play a show at the Muse back in the day with DRI, Dirty Rotten Imbeciles. I grew up listening to them, in junior high and high school. Their Thrash Zone album came out when I was in high school, and I just remember when I heard that, I was like, this is the epitome of like thrash metal mixed with like skate punk hardcore or whatever. And that is still to this day my all-time favorite album from them. So the fact that we got to open up for them and play a show with them, that was a big bucket list band to get to play with. And then the guitar player didn't have an amp and a cab, so he asked me if he could use my PV Valve King back when I was the guitar player for the band. So I was like, heck yeah, you can use my amp and cab. And I said, the only thing I ask, he's like, do you mind if I tweak the settings? I have a very particular way I like to dial my tone in. I said, yes, you can make whatever tweaks or changes you want. I said, only thing I ask is, can I watch how you set it? Because I said, absolutely love your guitar tone on your recordings and albums. So I'd like to see like what your magic formula is, how you dial your tone. And he said, yeah, you know, of course, man. So as he was doing it, he was explaining to me why he set each, you know, tone knob or you know, EQ knob, how he was setting it. He's like, this is why I do it this way. And so it was really neat to watch how another guitar player sets up his settings on a tube amp, you know.
Now let me ask you this: did you keep the settings?
I think I did for maybe a show or two, and then I ended up kind of changing them a little bit back. I kept some of his settings, and then I put some of mine back in. But I did like the way he had it, and you know, of course, we got to play a show with HR from Bad Brains, so that was another big bucket list. And
how'd that show go with him?
So the show itself was good, but I had heard stories that, you know, I don't, either he has maybe a mental illness of some sort that's pretty serious, or there was another like an urban legend that back in the 80s somebody had slipped a bunch of like liquid LSD or acid into a drink or a beer of his at an after party show, and that permanently damaged him. I don't know if that's true or not, but he was kind of out in left field. Super nice guy. But his band was up on stage for 5 minutes just playing instrumental, and he was backstage just sitting there looking at the ceiling. He wouldn't come out, and me and my brothers had to go backstage. This was at the Muse down in Nashville, and we're like, hey, HR, your band has been up on the stage playing for 5 minutes. It's time to get up on stage and do the show. All your fans are out there waiting.
Yeah.
And he's like, yeah, man, yeah, when Jah declares it, then I will go. When the time is right. I'm like, no, the time is right now. The show has started. You got to be up there. And so he finally like, all right, you know, he got up and went on stage and did his show or whatever, you know. But
that's awesome.
Yeah, that was an interesting one.
Have you seen the footage of Bad Brains? Where he'll sing some songs, and then Randy from Lamb of God will sing the song, the faster songs that he doesn't sing anymore.
I had not seen that. That sounds really cool though.
It is. They did I guess he did a tour with them. Randy did. I guess they asked him, "Hey, can you do these South America dates with her? Some tour with him?" And he's like, "Yeah." So he would do some of the songs, and then HR would do the other songs. It's pretty
awesome,
cool.
Man.
Because he's a big old like punk rock guy. He's not even a metalhead, But that's pretty cool. But yeah, what about playing with Phil?
That was a really good one too. Yeah, getting to play with Phil Anselmo from Pantera and Down, and with Super Joint Ritual.
Yeah,
that was really cool at the warehouse here in Clarksville. That was was amazing just getting to see him, but then to get to share the stage with him, and then back then we used to do a cover song version of Quiet Riot's Metal Health, and his guitar player for Super Joint Ritual, and also the guitar player for I Hate God, Jimmy Bauer.
Okay.
They came up on stage, and we're like, "Hey, can we help you sing the lyrics for that?" So we closed our set that night, and Jimmy Bauer came up there and sang with me, the choruses for Metal Health from Quiet Riot. So awesome. That was a really cool moment. And then also at the warehouse, we got to play with Fear Factory and Soilwork. Soilwork, those were good. Was a really good show too. That was a big bucket list because I was a big Fear Factory fan.
Yeah, Fear Factory. I didn't make the show that you guys had played. I saw Fear Factory later at the warehouse, and man, sounds so good.
Yeah, they're an amazing band, especially that original lineup. And when we got to open up for them, it was the anniversary of the Demanufacture album.
Nice.
That and Obsolete are probably my two favorite albums from them. So they played the Demanufacture album in its entirety. So that was a really cool show to get to play with them and open up for them, and get to watch them do, probably my favorite Fear Factory album of all time in its entirety from start to finish.
That is a good record. Yeah, the warehouse. I mean, you guys played some pretty decent shows at the warehouse with some bigger bands. Sad that it's gone.
Yeah, I drove past it on the way over here to do this interview tonight, and I just every time I drive past it, the building is still there, and I'm like, oh man, I missed that place. It had so many good times and good shows there, and
I don't know the reason why they had to sell the building or get rid of the building or the owners who owned the building, but I was like, could at least get to the warehouse. All right, look, we're gonna sell this building. We don't know when.
But you can lease it until then, until we tear it down and build condos or apartments or whatever they're going to eventually do.
They're going to be something.
Yeah, because the building's still there. It's just sitting empty. It's not being used for anything.
What you need to do is you need to find out who owns it and go in there and shoot you a video in there.
Yeah,
'Cause
yeah. If they would let you in, I doubt they would. You
yeah,
know?
that building, man. After they took everything out of there, I don't even know what's left in that place.
Yeah.
What's the craziest thing that's ever happened at a guerrilla warfare show?
Oh man, lots of fights. You know,
Yeah.
especially in the early days.
Yeah.
There was always, you'd be up there playing, just having a good time, and then you're like, oh man, something's going on, and somebody bumped into someone down in the mosh pit or whatever,
Yeah.
and next thing you know, someone's beating somebody up. We played a house show one time, and somebody got thrown through a window.
Ugh.
Yeah, they decided the house show was in this big basement. It was a big open basement, the length of the house, and it was summertime, and somebody pulls a big ladder out and puts it in the middle of the circle pit, and then kids were climbing up on the ladder and jumping off. Somebody jumped off the ladder, and then someone threw them out a window, and so they busted through a window, and then the cops got called, and so as soon as we were done playing, we packed all our stuff up and left before the cops started arresting people and running them out of there.
That was a. I'm gonna just take a guess. That was probably about 6 or 7 years ago.
The house show?
Yeah.
No, this was a lot. This was closer to the beginning of the band. This is probably
okay. Wasn't there a house show that you guys played and you guys played and left because it was kind of something similar to that?
Yeah, that was down in Columbia, Tennessee.
Okay,
That was somebody tried to do a metal fest, but it was at some house, and we're thinking, okay, it's a house out in the country where you're not going to have to be worried about cops getting called or disturbing people, the neighbors. But no, it's right smack dab in the middle of the neighborhood. And so during the day, the neighbors, I guess they were willing to overlook the fact that there's a bunch of metal and hardcore bands playing in somebody's, garage or whatever, and then there's a crowd of 150 people standing outside the garage. They had the garage doors open. It's blasting the music out into the neighborhood. But as it got closer to dark, shortly after we got done playing, I think the band after us or two bands after us, I guess the neighbors got tired of it and they called the cops. And so 5 or 6 cop cars showed up and shut the show down. So we were already gone by that point. We packed our stuff up because we had a feeling it wasn't going to end well.
I don't remember. I remember I was in the band at that time. Some reason I wasn't able to make that show.
I think you were either out of town or you had to work that day.
One of the two, yeah. So Brett, guerrilla warfare is, has been around for 20 years. You've had a lot of different members in the band. At times when somebody leaves, what keeps you all right, who are you, who do you think about? All right, there's this guy that might be able to do it, or is it hard to try to find replacements at times?
Sometimes it can be especially if it's only one member that's leaving, and especially like I said, a lot of people that have been because we're a military town. We're right here by Fort Campbell, Kentucky. A lot of people that have been in the military. We're in the band, we're in the military, and so sometimes when they leave, it's because they got orders to go get stationed somewhere else.
Correct.
They can't help it. So a lot of times you have notice. They might know 4, 5, 6 months in advance. So you have time to kind of look around in the music scene or what other musicians that are good people, that are talented, that, okay, this guy, other, 2 people play this instrument, so I could be, thinking about asking them or maybe talking to them ahead of time, hey, in a couple months we're going to have a spot open up. So times like that, it's not as bad. It's always sad to see a member because a lot of times you become very good, close friends with a lot of the people that you're bandmates with, and so you're sad to see them leave. But for times like that where you have at least a heads up, months in advance, all right, you can kind of be looking around. But other times, of course, there's been a few times where there's been people that, maybe an argument between 2 band members and one of them quit suddenly. And so then that's a little tougher. You have to, all right, now it's kind of short notice or no notice, and you have to try to look around, especially if they're in a key position, if you've got 2 guitar players and one of them leaves, it's okay, well, all right, we can limp along with one guitar player for maybe a month or 2 until we find somebody or whatever. But yeah, if you lose 2 members at the same time, then that's a little bit tougher,
I'm going to ask the $1 million question.
All right.
Could you make the guerrilla warfare family tree?
Could I make the family tree?
With everybody that's been in guerrilla warfare.
I could, yeah. I could sit there. I think I did that before.
Really?
When I was man, I don't even know how many people have been in the band at this point because there's been a lot of, we've been fortunate enough, it'll seem like we'll keep the same lineup for 3, 4, 5 years, and then maybe 1 or 2 people will leave, and then and then we'll keep that next lineup for a couple years, and then so it doesn't seem as drastic or sudden because it's not all at once. It's like it slowly evolves over time. But yeah, if I needed to, I could go back and remember everybody. Like even me and my brothers joked that we had this one guy. He wanted to join as a guitar player. He was like a punk rocker, skinhead kid from Nashville.
Okay.
His first name was Colin. But anyways, my brother Jeff will still bring him up every once in a while. He came to like maybe practice for 3 weeks. He's like, yeah, I want to join. I'll be your extra guitar player, or whatever. And this is way back in the day. But he's like, yeah, man, I want to play a show with you guys. This, that, and the other. And so he came to practice for like, I don't know, like I said, maybe 3 weeks. Did one show, and then we never heard from him again. And he was just insistent on like, hey, there's this one song you guys have. I really love it. That Remember When I Was Young song.
Yeah,
remember that we used to do? It was kind of a punk song back in the day. He loved that song, and he was like, we have to play that song. I'm like, all right, cool, play that song. So we did the one show with him, and then we did that song, and then we never heard from him again. He never came to another practice, never did another show. And so my brother Jeff, every once in a while, will call me up from North Carolina. We talk a couple times a week. He's like, remember one show, Colin? Like, that's his nickname now. And I can't remember the guy's last name or no idea where he's at.
So technically, he's still in the band. He just hasn't come back to practice.
Yeah. Was he ever really in the band?
Maybe he was just a figment of your imagination.
Yeah.
So I was the drummer from Jawfane in Guerrilla Warfare at one time?
For a short time, yeah. He never did a show with us. He never recorded with us, but he did practice with us for maybe about 3 months.
When was this?
This was probably maybe 2015.
Oh, okay.
2014.
Okay.
He was still actually in the Army at that time.
Oh, that guy's in the Army.
He was in the Army.
Okay.
He was a cook in the Army working in the chow hall, and one of our guitar players at the time, Corey, he was still in the Army.
Yeah.
And I guess that's how we knew each other. And I guess he was like, hey, I know this guy's a musician. He's supposed to be a pretty good drummer. And I always see him at the chow hall. And he's like, hey, if you know anybody looking for a drummer, let me know. And at the time, our drummer we had just lost, he was in the Army. He was a E6, a staff sergeant in the Army, and he got orders to move to Alaska. And so when he went to Alaska, our guitar player's like, hey, why don't we give this other guy, he's in the Army too, he's a drummer, but he just got stationed here. He's going to be here for a while. So he practiced with us for a couple months. And he's a talented drummer, good guy, but he ended up, I guess just we weren't the style. Like at first he was happy just to be in a band, but then he found a band that was more what he was into, I guess, like maybe doing a mix of emo and metalcore or I don't even know what the style was. Some band in Hendersonville, and he ended up joining them. And then I'm trying to remember who we got after that.
I for some reason I thought those guys were a lot younger. I didn't realize that dude was in the military, and that was 10 years ago almost. That's crazy. Who was the drummer before him?
Lael, I believe. No, his name was Eli Kelly. He was the guy that was in the Army. He recorded. He was only in the band for about 6 or 7 months, but he did a lot in that 6 or 7 months. He played like 4 or 5 shows with us. He recorded an album with us, helped us write some songs. So it was a very productive 6 or 7 months with the Eli Kelly guy as a drummer. Good guy, and only reason he left is because he got orders to go to Alaska for 4 years. He wasn't going to be stationed here at Fort Campbell no more.
So you said Lael. So you said Lael played drums too?
Lael played drums for a short time. Never did a show with us as the drummer. Recorded a couple demo songs with us at a friend's home studio, and then at that point in time, he thought like both of the guitar players we had in the band at that time were big time metalheads. They're straight up, their influences were, Slayer, Metallica, Megadeth, Suicidal Tendencies, all that kind of stuff. And he was like, man, this isn't the guerrilla warfare I remember. The guerrilla warfare I remember was hardcore, and now we got these 2 metalhead guitar players, and they're playing all these harmonics and solos and thrash metal parts. And, if I'm going to stay in the band, I don't want to write these type of songs. I only want to stick to the old guerrilla warfare,
gotcha.
basic old East Coast hardcore. And I'm like, well, I want to let the band evolve. This is the members we got. They're talented at their instruments. They're good. Even if they're metalheads, not hardcore people, they're still really good musicians. Let's let them write what they write and see what happens. I kind of like the direction it's going. That's kind of when the shift going towards more of a metal sound happened.
And
at that time. And so he's like, well, I'm leaving now. I'm like, all right, cool. And then he ended up rejoining as our bass player.
He did it all in the band,
Yeah,
play guitar too,
Yeah.
No, I mean bands evolve, and it happened. I mean, look at Hatebreed. They started as a hardcore band. Now look at them. They're a metal band.
More of a metal band, yeah.
It's awesome. So currently what's going on with Guerrilla Warfare currently?
We're getting ready to play a show here, first show in over a year, Saturday, April 27th at Wicked Good Sandwiches here in Clarksville with some bands that we're friends with. Fuzz Ripper and Creek Devil are both going to be playing the show. And then the Catwalk Fitness Girls are also going to be doing a burlesque dancing show in between the bands. And I think they're going to have a DJ also playing music while the Catwalk Fitness Girls are doing their burlesque dancing.
Okay.
So that's Saturday, April 27th. You can get advance tickets for $10 from either Wicked Good Sandwiches or Catwalk Fitness, or you can hit any of the bands up. They've all got tickets for sale. Or you can buy a ticket the day of the show. I think it's $5 more. It's like $15, but It's like a zombie prom metal show is the theme of the show. And I guess the Catwalk Fitness people do this once a year, every year. So it's really their show. They invited us to play. So that's coming up here. Not this weekend, but next weekend.
Awesome.
Yeah, we're looking forward to just getting on the stage and playing a show again, hanging out, having a good time, and then we've been writing new songs. So we've got instrumental demos recorded for 4 or 5 of them. We're trying to write one more new song, and then we're gonna hopefully within the next couple weeks to a month go to the studio and record actual final, completed versions of all the songs and put out a new album or EP.
Now, are you going to record with Thor, or do you have somewhere else you want to go?
No, we have a studio picked out, probably Eltrod Studios with Thomas Rodriguez, the drummer from Divisive.
Okay, yeah.
Yeah, Meditator recorded with them, Existing Exile recorded with them, and Divisive records their stuff there, and they do a pretty good job. So that's kind of where we're looking at.
Okay.
If for some reason that falls through, we've got 1 or 2 other places we're kind of keeping in mind.
Awesome.
So.
Talking about Thor. Now you're in another band as well, correct? With Thor.
I was. I am not in that band.
You are not.
Anymore.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Did not know
I've
that.
been out of that band for about a month and a half. So,
okay.
Yeah.
All right. Cool. Did not know that. Sorry.
Yeah. No problem. I was in that band as a bass player for about 3 years, 9 months, but they decided they did not need my services as bass player anymore about a month and a half ago. So, all right, I will be over to pick my bass guitar up next week and say la vie. Have a nice life.
Is your brother still in the band?
He is.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. I guess you answered that question. I was about to ask if it's challenging sometimes to keep going when you're trying to find members and whatnot. But I think right now you got a pretty good little lineup. Who's in the band currently?
Yeah, so right now got myself on vocals, and then we got Steve Bailey as our lead guitar player. A guy named Tommy, he's also in Fuzz Ripper and Dad Bop. He's our second guitar player.
Okay. Awesome.
Both really talented guitar players, Steve Bailey and Tommy. And then Josh Grimes is our drummer. And then we got Eric Daly, last but not least, as our bass player. He's super talented bass player. And that's the lineup right now, the 5 of us.
I think Eric Daly's been in that band more times than a lot of people.
Yeah, good dude.
He's a great guy, man.
Very talented musician and just a good friend, good guy.
I like I said earlier, I had heard some of the instrumentals, and his bass, the way his bass sounds, it's like wow, it's had like a little distortion to it. I mean, it sounded. I was like, I had to ask. I asked Josh like, who's on the bass, and he was like, that's Eric. And I was like, man, that bass sounds good.
Oh yeah. They're all talented musicians, and Eric is very talented. We're very glad to have him as the bass player, and he's able to dial in a good tone. Like I said, Steve Bailey is a tone master too. He will sit there and just tweak and dial, and he'll help everybody else in the band to get their tone set up and dialed in too. If he hears something, he'll be like, "Hold on, do you mind if I mess with this knob?" And they'll be like, "Oh wow, I thought it sounded great. That sounds even better." So
Well, being in a band with Josh, with Steve. And with Eric at times, I think you're currently right now. This is, you got yourself a killer lineup.
Yeah, I'm very, very happy with the lineup we got. Like
Josh and
all good guys, all good musicians.
Josh and Steve have such a great chemistry.
Yeah, they really do.
they really work well together. And then of course Eric as well, and then you. I'm looking forward to checking out the show next weekend. If anybody wants to come with me, I'm looking to bring somebody.
Awesome. Yeah, the more the merrier. Bring everybody.
You said Creek Devil's playing. Have you heard the new Creek Devil track?
I have. I actually listened to it today while I was supposed to be at work working. I was like, I had the headphones on, and I was like, "Ooh, this is really good." Kind of like I said, they've always reminded me of like a southern metal, like Down.
Yeah.
But also Blake Bailey, the vocals, man. He, like I said, reminds me kind of Pantera,
Yeah,
like I said,
that's what I felt.
Great riffs, So I was really impressed with their new single that they just put out.
I told Poff, he sent it to me to listen to today, and I was about to listen to it anyway. And after I listened to it, I had told him, I was like, man, this is probably your best track yet. Like, I like the demo they put out. That's good, but this song was done really well. I really enjoyed it.
It really sounded good. I was very impressed with it. I liked it a lot.
Had your signature Poff squeals in there.
Oh yeah. I was listening for those, man.
They're
definitely there. Blake's a good guitar player, man.
Yeah, great guy. If you were at a show, you're at a show and there's some kid there and he's like, man, I want to be in a band. What would you tell him to make him want to keep going and start a band?
Just be like, hey, if this is what you really want to do and this is what you're passionate about and that's what you love, then stick to it. Don't give up on it, and put the time and work in. It actually takes time and work and discipline.
Oh yeah.
And dedication. Like I said, you have to stick with it. Even if nobody else believes in you, you have to believe in yourself.
Yeah.
And get other people to be able to believe in what your vision is and be like, look, let's do this. We can do this. And you need to encourage other people, the people that are your bandmates, because sometimes it seems like a lot of work or a lot of time. And so you gotta, to get over those humps, just be like, look, the end product and result's gonna be worth it. So keep pushing and don't give up on what your dream is, go after it.
And don't get frustrated either. I mean, sometimes you'll play to 5 people.
Yeah.
Not every show is going to be a big show, but you got to play. I was always told,
give it 100%.
Yep. Because those 5 people might bring 5 people themselves.
Yeah.
Each one of those people, that's more people next time, and
exactly.
So you always perform like it's a full house,
Yeah. You've got to give it 100% no matter what, whether it's a big crowd or small crowd. Just go out there and, if you, in your mind, if you have treated it as, hey, this is the glorified band practice, even if there's only 10 people here, still go out there and give it everything you got and just make the most of it, have fun.
I mean, how many times have we played shows and it was like the bands that were there,
Yeah. There's
and guess what?
Times where it's that.
You got 5 bands with 5 people. That's 25 people right there. That's enough people, know. Like you said, glorified practice. We always said, like I said, kids, so many bands that come and go, and I wonder if that's the reason, because they get frustrated but you just got to keep going, Any new guerrilla warfare merchandising coming out?
Probably as we get closer to releasing the album and actually putting it out, we'll probably, whatever the album art is, I'm sure we'll get some new shirt or hoodie designs with that album artwork on it, whatever we get made for it.
So you said you got 4 songs instrumentals. Are you trying to work out the lyrics to them now, or?
No, I've already got lyrics written, so it's just a matter of Steve's house is where we've got the little home studio where we've recorded the demo versions. Okay. So he's just been really busy the last couple weeks. So all the instruments are recorded for the demo versions of these songs. I've just been needing him to give me 1 or 2 nights where he's free after work, after I'm out of work and he's out of work, so I can come over and do the vocal tracks for him. So that's kind of really the last step before we go to the real studio to record final versions of all this stuff, just to make sure, because sometimes when you're rehearsing songs at practice or whatever, hey, yeah, this sounds great, but until you actually have a recording of it, it's hard to know, okay, hey, do I want to change anything up? Maybe something as simple as just you want to move a couple lines around, or maybe a certain line. Hey, I didn't realize I was doing that a little bit too repetitive. Let me rewrite a couple of these or whatever.
Correct. And you don't always hear everything at practice either, you know. And like you
Right.
said, once you get it,
So
like
you have a recording to listen back to several times.
so basically, it's like you guys are doing pre-production for the record.
Exactly. That way, that just makes us that much more prepared before we go record the real versions of everything.
That's awesome too, and also too, you know, depending on where you're practicing, also it makes it sound a whole lot different too. You know,
Yeah.
You know, if you performed in a basement like with concrete walls compared to a wooden wall or whatever, you know,
Oh,
it could
yeah,
be
yeah.
anything, or in a garage when you got garage doors, you know.
Yep.
Yeah, we were taking under was going to record with a producer, and he was wanting to come over and listen and to see what it sounded like, and yeah, never did that, but you know, it still turned out a great record, you know.
Awesome.
You been to any cool shows lately?
Let's see. Most recently, I went and saw Cro-Mags down at the Cobra in Nashville.
Okay.
I think that was last month.
Uh-huh.
And that they put on a killer show. Harley Flanagan from Cro-Mags is not only a phenomenal bass player, but a great vocalist and an amazing frontman. That guy is 110% energy from start of the show to end of the show, and just really has an attitude of gratitude, humbleness, appreciation, and like he's thanking the crowd constantly through, like in between songs. Like you can tell it's from the heart. You know, he's speaking his truth, and so he just he was saying, you know, I went through some rough years in my younger days. I look back on the person that I used to be, and you know, I'm just like, wow, what a bunch of wasted, you know, years and energy. Not that it wasn't some good stuff, but he's just saying the way he used to treat people, you know, and just doing some of the, you know, I'm sure you've heard some of the thuggish stories.
Oh yeah,
from
for sure.
From back in those days or whatever. And he's like, yeah, I'm not that person anymore. And he's like, now he's into working out, doing like Brazilian jiu-jitsu and taking care of himself. And he's saying, you know, I guess back in his younger days, he was really mixed up with some pretty heavy drug use.
Okay, yeah.
And now he's completely clean and sober. And he's like, look, he's like, I'm healthier now in my, you know, mid 50s or late 50s, whatever, you know, he's like, than I was when I was in my 20s. He's like, you know, I'm in much better shape and better health.
He is that Harley? That's the Harley from Harley's War, right?
Yes.
Okay.
Yeah,
okay.
Harley Flanagan. Yeah.
Now there's two Cro-Mags. Is this correct, right? Yeah.
Yes, I guess they had a legal battle or a court battle or whatever over who got the right to use the name, and I guess Harley Flanagan was the founder of the Cro-Mags. He came up with the band name. I guess he was like one of the main songwriter, and so he had to go to court, I guess, against the original vocalist and I think the guitar player, John Joseph, and Paris Mayhew. And I guess, you know, when it was all said and done, he won the rights to use the name Cro-Mags. I think the other guys still tour and play Cro-Mag songs, but they call themselves like Cro-Mags JM or something like that. I think Black Flag is in a kind of a similar situation where they have two versions of the band.
Yeah, because I mean, Greg Ginn, who is the originator of Black Flag, he still uses Black Flag. But I know a few years back, Keith Morris did Flag.
Yeah.
You know, then he started that new band called Off.
Yeah,
which is really cool. I got to see him last week or week before last. Went saw Circle Jerks and
the Descendants. Yeah, I remember you telling me you went to that show.
Great show. The Cro-Mag, was that in the big room or little room?
I was in the big room at the Cobra. Yeah, so they put on just a phenomenal show, and it was packed wall to wall. Like I said, people were into the music from start to finish.
That's
man.
awesome.
So yeah, it was amazing. I was supposed to go with a friend. He's a soldier here at Fort Campbell, and at the last minute, we were going to ride up there together. He's like, "Hey man, don't call me a punk, but I'm really tired. I fell asleep on the couch."
Punk.
And you know, I was getting kind of a late start. I think I had band practice that night, so I was going to be leaving straight from guerrilla warfare band practice to go right down to Nashville to the Cro-Mag show. I'm like, all right, I'll still get there at least an hour before the Cro-Mags go on the stage, so that's cool. He's like, I was gonna have to buy my ticket at the door. I didn't buy one ahead of time. He had already bought one ahead of time. He's like, here, I'm gonna send. He messaged me his QR code.
Oh,
and it's free. He's like, just take my free ticket and go in. Since he's like, I'm too tired to go, so I ended up getting to see him for free.
That's
so
awesome.
That was pretty cool. So shout out to Andrew Brockelman for that. That's my buddy.
Is Harley the only original member in the band?
He is,
Okay,
yeah.
okay.
But the guys the other three guys he's got, the guitar player, the drummer, and I guess it's two guitar players. Those dudes are all top notch musicians and they're good performers too. They're doing,
Nice.
yeah. The bass player and the other guitar player, or the two guitar players are both doing backup vocals. They each have a mic, and that drummer, man, he's an animal behind that drum kit. Yeah, he's a hard hitting drummer, man.
You gonna go see Cro-Mags when they come back with the helmet?
I would like to. So yeah, I'm hoping to go see that one. I like Helmet, and like I said, Cro-Mags definitely. Like I said, that was the first time I ever got to see them live, and they definitely. Yeah. I'm sold on them. So any chance I get to see them, I'd like to see them again.
It's cool to see all these bands that either keep going or have come back out and are going again. It's cool to see that they still got that let's go and drive. Like when I saw Descendants, Adolescents, and Circle Jerks, most of them dudes are in their 60s.
Yeah, but they're still going.
Yeah, Keith
still
Moore
doing a good job.
I think he turned 69 this year, and then he was up there having a good old time moving around. Like, that's awesome to see that.
Well, that's like just on the drive over here. I was listening to one of the radio stations. I think it's 97.5. Samantha Knight was talking about Judas Priest just putting out a new album, and she was giving him props. She's like, "Hey, props to Rob Halford. He just turned 70." And his band has been going for like 50 years.
Yeah,
and he still has his vocal ability. He still has a great voice, even at that age. And a lot of people, they lose their voice as they get older.
Yeah.
And she's like, I just think that's amazing, and kudos to them that they can still tour, put on great concerts, and still record great albums. Even at this age in life.
Yeah, I saw them. I wasn't there. I saw it on HBO Max. I saw it on Max.
I'm still calling it HBO.
Yeah, I'm old school.
Yeah.
The rock and roll induction of Judas Priest, and man, they killed it, And then KK came out and performed with them too, and but yeah, man, they sound good. That's another band with the name thing, because doesn't KK have like KK's Priest?
I believe so. Yeah. I think Queensryche did that too for a while. They had two versions of that.
Jeff Tate's Queensryche, because they went, and then
all the other members had a different singer, and they had their version of it.
White Lion had one, Rat.
Yeah.
L.A. Guns. So it's like, come on, guys.
Work it out. Work it out.
Yeah, man. If there's any shows, I'm down to go to any shows nowadays. That's my goal this year, is to go to as many shows as I can. I said this the other on one of the episodes. I thought my last show was the Agnostic Front show that we played, but it was actually the Clutch Hatebreed show here in Clarksville.
Yeah.
So that was my last show, and that was probably 2 or 3 years ago.
Yeah.
So but now I'm like,
other than ones that you played.
Correct, and I don't consider those. But yeah. I think next month me and Eric are going to go see Mr. Bungle.
Oh, cool.
Lombardo's on drums.
Awesome.
Scott Ian's on guitar.
That's really that's a solid lineup.
And then it's Mike Patton,
Yeah, yeah.
So that's kind of cool.
Love me some Faith No More, man.
Oh man, I hope they do something soon again, and if they do, I would have to try to find a way to a show if it was Atlanta, St. Louis, because I doubt they'll come to Nashville. Everyone always decides if they're playing Atlanta, most of the time they skip Nashville.
Yeah.
Sucks, but it's all right.
I just saw where Biohazard's been doing a lot of shows. They've been very active with their I think it's the whole original.
It's the original lineup, yeah.
And but I just saw they're coming to Louisville to play Louder Than Life.
Wow.
They're on one of the days of Louder Than Life, so I was like, ooh, I might have to go up there and check that out. I love Biohazard.
They're so good, and I watched their first show they did back, and I'm not a great musician, but they were solid. Of course, you could tell they hadn't been played together. Well, Evan, I guess, was the only one that wasn't been playing with them, but they sound they're good, and they've been together now a year now, and
that's awesome. Man.
They got a lot tighter. It's pretty cool.
I always love that band.
Yeah, I've seen them a few different times. They always put on a good show, man. And it's cool to see. And Evan, man, it's like if you didn't know that was him, you would be like, "Who's that guy up there?" Because he's lost
he doesn't have the beard anymore. He's got clean shaven.
He's all toned up now.
Yeah, and he's slimmed down. He's in really good shape. It looks like
it's really cool, man. Let's see here. I got a question from Blake Poff.
All right, let's hear what that
is. And I know, and you don't have to think too much into it if you don't want. I know.
Okay.
It's a generic question, but I like it anyway. He wants to know what your top 5 bands of all time are.
Ooh, that's a good one.
Yeah.
All right, so my top five favorite bands of all time from Blake Poff.
Yep.
All right, I got to put Black Sabbath
All right.
up there. I'm gonna have to put the Misfits up there. Got them tattooed on my arm a couple places. Who else would I have to put up there? God, I've got like 100 favorite bands.
Yeah, no.
Probably gonna have to put Biohazard up in there.
All right.
Let's see, I've only got 2 left. This is
Yep.
where it starts getting really tough.
You're not going to offend any band.
Yeah, no. I'm just trying to think for
Yeah.
me personally, what am I listening to all the time?
Slayers and me not going to be like, oh, he didn't put me in their top 5?
Yeah. Shoot. I'm gonna have to put.
It's a hard question when you get put
It
on
really
the class,
is.
you know?
Yeah, because I could name probably at least 30 or 40 more bands that
Yeah,
are
oh, for sure.
big time influential and big time favorites. But
yeah.
yeah, just to narrow it down to only 5.
Yeah.
So we got Black Sabbath, Misfits,
Biohazard.
Biohazard. Man, I only get 2 more. That is really, really tough. All right. You know what? I'm going to throw. Man. I'm going to throw Alice in Chains in there.
All right.
And then probably finish it off.
Little Celine Dion.
I'm going to say a tie between Faith No More and Soundgarden.
Throw them both in there.
So I'm
We'll
cheating.
give
I
you
got
6.
6.
We'll
I
give
got
you
cheating.
6.
I got 6. Sorry, Blake. I couldn't bring it down. Yeah, but really, like I said, I could
It's
sit there all
hard.
day long. Yeah, that's a very tough question. Good one, Blake Poff.
I actually that's I say it's a generic question because the first 3 interview I had, that's one of the questions I ask. It's like, what's your top 5 movies? What's your top 5?
Yeah.
Who would you
What
say?
would be easier is if he said like a specific genre, like, hey, give me your 5 favorite metal bands.
Correct. Okay. Yeah,
or
yeah.
5 favorite hardcore bands.
All right, here we go.
5
I got one
favorite-
for you.
Okay.
Who's your favorite metal singer?
My favorite metal singer. Wow.
See,
Whew, that is a tough one.
yeah.
I don't know if you could classify this as, I guess, a hard rock or
Yeah.
alternative band, but also a metal band. I would say he's not alive anymore. Chris Cornell.
Yeah.
He's been in Soundgarden and Audio Slave and the Temple of the Dog, and he's got an amazing voice.
Oh yeah, yeah. I remember when he put out his first solo album, I wasn't really feeling it at first, and then he put the second one out. I was like, oh, let me go back and listen to this first one again. I was like, all right, I like the first one. I got to meet him in '91 or '92. I was a little young Russ, and it was right when it was a Bad Motorfinger tour. It was Soundgarden.
Such a good album too.
I can't remember who played that show now. Now I'm thinking about it. Anywho, it was Soundgarden, Monster Magnet, and Swerve Driver.
Okay. I know on that same album they also, I believe they toured with Danzig on the Lucifuge tour too.
Really, that would have been cool to see.
But yeah, I think that was when Bad Motorfinger. It was either right before Bad Motorfinger came out or maybe after.
Yeah, my question to him was, I was all nervous and shit. I was like probably 15 or 16 or something. I was like, oh, what's it mean to film Minnesota and look California, or look California, film Minnesota? And he was like, it's like, feeling down but looking good at the same time. I was like, like I got you. I don't know why. I asked
Looking
that
good on
question.
the outside, everybody
but-
thinks
yeah,
you're doing
yeah,
good, but in
exactly.
the inside you're bummed out. Or
And that's a
depressed or
lot of
whatever.
us,
Yeah.
I was like, oh, okay. And then I think right after that, I'd seen White Zombie and Danzig together. That was really cool. White Zombie was dope. That was a pretty cool show.
Man, now that you said that, I'm thinking I'm a huge Danzig
Yeah,
fan
you
too.
are.
He's got amazing voice. I'm like, I could have gone with Danzig also for favorite metal vocalist.
What do you think of the Danzig Elvis album?
Not a fan. I'm just not.
And you like you said,
Yeah,
you
not hating on it, but
No.
I did not buy it. And I've got pretty much all his other albums from all of his other bands.
Yeah, me and Slaughter were we're talking about Danzig, and we're talking about you and how you were a big Danzig fan, how we kind of slipped off, and then you were like, oh, but this one's so good and this one's so good, and then I went back and listened to someone, and there are some good ones out there, but to me,
Those
first
first 3 or 4, those are always going to be
Yeah.
the iconic ones
And-
with the classic lineup.
and they were already popular, but when that third album came out, it grew their fan base even more.
Yeah, the How the Gods Kill album. Yeah.
I've seen some recent performances of Danzig, and he still got it, man.
Oh yeah.
He still got it,
Yeah.
People, you've seen those pictures online of Danzig buying cat food. Well, what's this or kitty litter?
Yeah.
Like people. I mean,
He's got a life outside of music.
Yeah.
He's got to go home, and
Yeah.
he probably gets lonely, so he's got some pets.
Yeah.
You know.
Did you ever see those books that somebody made? It was like the relationship of Henry Rollins and Glenn Danzig.
I've seen people post pictures of them online or whatever a couple times.
There's like 3 or 4 different ones out there. I have not purchased any, but I was curious to kind of see what was inside them books. Maybe I don't want to see what's inside them books.
Yeah, I don't think I do. I wouldn't spend money on it for sure.
Outside of music, what does Brett Warfare do?
I'm big time into weightlifting, so that's something I do. About 5 days a week, pretty much every day after work.
Yeah.
I go to the gym for anywhere from 1 to 2 hours, and I enjoy powerlifting specifically. And then also I like artwork. I am a comic collector, comic nerd, whatever. I enjoyed it as a kid. I got out of it when I got older and got into like high school sports and wrestling, and then joining the Army for 10 years. I kind of got out of it, but here over the last, I'd say 10 years, I've gotten back into collecting again, and I enjoy collecting and reading a lot of the stuff that I had when I was a kid. It's almost like a treasure hunt, going looking for it again.
Yeah, and it's crazy too. Like something that you bought for $1, now if you have to rebuy, it might be like $25.
Yeah, or 50 or
50
40 or 100,
100,
depending on what it is. Yeah, some of that stuff, it's like, I had that as a kid. Now that's worth $1,000.
Yep.
When I joined the Army, my parents threw all my stuff out. So I lost all my collection, and I had some stuff that's worth like thousands of dollars now. And so if I go in a comic shop now and I see it up on the wall behind the cash register, it's like, oh, this is $2,000. Like, damn, I had that as a kid and I only paid $1 for it. A little
tear forms up. You're like, oh, yeah. When I moved to Clarksville, I had a bunch of comics too, and I had some good stuff. It's right around. It's right when Spawn was starting. I had like the first 20 Spawns in there in great condition, and I had like when Superman died, all this different stuff, and I sold them all so I can get a high. It's like, and I didn't even get nowhere near what they were worth.
Oh,
like,
no, they'll always try to haggle you down.
I sold the whole collection for $50, and they probably had a couple $1,000s worth of comics there. They're probably like, $50. I'm like, yeah, give me it. And now I'm like, fuck.
Yeah, I wish I had some of that stuff back.
The only comic guy I really collect now, I try to get some, is Lobo. I always liked Lobo.
Oh, okay.
He was a badass. I always wish they made a Lobo movie. I'm not too sure it would go over so well nowadays, but I liked me some Lobo.
That's cool, man.
If Brett had a superpower, what would it be?
Ooh, that's a good one. Probably super strength.
You already have that.
I want to go beyond superhuman,
So you want to be like Superman? You can just pick up anything you want, huh?
Yeah, or Hulk, or Luke
Hulk.
Cage, the Power Man.
Yeah. What's Brett's Subway order?
At Subway?
Yeah.
I don't go there very often anymore, but if I do, the Italian BMT is pretty good. So.
On what kind of bread?
That.
Cheddar.
The Italian with the cheese or whatever. Yeah,
that's a pretty good one.
I kind of like Jersey Mike's or Firehouse subs. If I'm gonna get a sub, I'll go
never had Firehouse subs. I never had it. I heard
they're
it's really
pretty
good.
decent. Jersey Mike's is probably my favorite one. If
Really?
I'm going for sub, but yeah, a lot of times I won't go out for subs anymore because I'm just like, all right, I can make a sandwich at the house. If I'm going out, I'm gonna get Asian food, Chinese food.
Yeah, for sure. Like that's
pizza or something.
Yeah, if I go out get something that's like it's either Mexican food or Asian food.
There we go. Yeah, Mexican's good too.
Yeah. What's a movie that you find yourself quoting?
Like on a regular basis?
Oh yeah, with the boys.
Probably Step Brothers.
Yeah.
Yeah, that comes up a lot at band practice. We're always doing Step Brother quote, and then even like amongst my family, it's my kids and my wife or whatever. We'll sit there and the scene where they're doing their Prestige Worldwide, and they're like, "Hey, watch the video," and they're like, and the dad's like, "Who's driving the boat? Who's driving?" They're like, "Just watch the video," and then they crash the boat.
That's a good movie.
Yeah, it cracks me up.
Movie. Would you rather travel in the past or travel to the future?
Ooh, probably the past.
Okay. Well, for what reason?
Just go back and see a bunch of cool historical events that you read about, but you never got to see in your own lifetime.
You're only able to travel back to one particular period of time. Where would you go?
Man, that's a tough one. I've never thought about that because I always thought if I did get to time travel, it would be like you have got your machine. You're going to see multiple
the
events.
DeLorean.
Yeah. Man, That's a good one.
I always say the prehistoric days. I don't know why. I wouldn't survive.
Yeah,
But
I don't know that I would want to go back quite that far, but
um, yeah. Do you have any regrets in life?
I think everybody does.
Yeah.
Anybody that's honest, anyway. So
Yeah,
I mean,
for sure.
yeah, there's definitely some things I look back on like you know, get to that fork in the road. Do you go left or right? It's like, man, I went right, but I could have gone left, and you wonder what would have happened.
Oh yeah, and then
Yeah.
I've gotten really bad at that. The whole me and Josh had spoke about this. The whole woulda, coulda, shoulda, and I find myself thinking about that stuff way too often, and you're already past that. You're in the now, so you just don't make those mistakes again, and
Yeah.
whatever. I just had something I was gonna say. But
Speaking of what you're saying,
Yeah.
though, that, like, I'm going to ask you a question now,
ahead.
because I'm going to give you an example of
Okay.
what you're talking about and
All right.
getting. It's kind of like references your last two questions
Okay,
about
go
the
ahead.
time travel, like, and going back in time or whatever.
Yeah.
But also, hey, any regrets? Have you ever been in a situation, and I'm going to give you my situation, where you're wondering for years, what if I'd gone this other route, right?
Yep.
Like we talked about earlier,
Yeah.
how my family was big time into wrestling.
Yeah.
And so when I first joined the Army, the Army has what they call the World Class Athlete Program. They have an all-Army wrestling team. If you're good enough to make it, you basically get paid. You're not going to get rich. It's not like being a professional athlete, but for the sport of Olympic wrestling, that's the closest you're going to get. You're going to get your military paycheck, but you don't have to go to regular work anymore. They pay you to do nothing but train for wrestling. They have a gym with all the other top wrestlers in the military, and that's what you get paid to do. Is just you train 10 hours a day, go into wrestling practice, running, lifting weights. They pay for all your travel to go to like the national wrestling championships, over to Europe to train with other countries' best wrestlers.
Okay.
And they try to, and so the Army is very good. There's Greco-Roman wrestling is one of the Olympic styles. They dominate Greco-Roman wrestling because most people, the more popular Olympic wrestling is called freestyle wrestling. So most of the good college wrestlers that come out of college, they dominate that, but the Army dominates Greco-Roman wrestling.
Okay.
So I was actually, that travel team I was telling you about in high school that kept me out of trouble, out of gangs, out of drugs and all that stuff. It was ran by the all-Marine wrestling team out of Quantico Marine Base. They came and they were trying to give back to the community because they realized, hey, there's a lot of kids in bad neighborhoods here, and this sport is all they've got. So they did that in the off season to keep them from joining gangs, getting involved with drugs, committing crimes, things like that. So they would take us all spring and summer up and down the East Coast, all these tournaments, high level tournaments and stuff like that, to nationals. And so that was kind of my dream before I got into music or whatever, was, hey, I want to try to either go to wrestle in college, or if I can't do that, then I'll go in the military and try to get on the all-Army wrestling team and get paid to wrestle and see if I can make an Olympic team or a world team. And so I was still competing in wrestling tournaments, and I got close. I had put in paperwork for a tryout for the all-Army team, and they have like scouts like you'd have from a professional baseball or football team. From the all-Army team came to the Army wrestling championships that I competed in, and I made it to the finals.
Wow.
And so the scouts from the all-Army team came up to me and the other guy I'm about to fight in the final match for the gold medal, and he said, hey, you both put in an application to come and be part of the all-Army wrestling team in the World Class Athlete Program. We've watched both of you wrestle today. You both dominated everybody else in this tournament. You're the two best guys here in your weight class, so let's make this finals match more interesting. Whoever wins gets to come to the all-Army wrestling team. And so, anyways, I was winning for the first part of the match, 3-0, and then we went out of bounds, and like I wasn't really thinking, I was just acting, I was just competing. And when I went out of bounds and they stopped the match, I looked over at the scorekeeper's table, and it's like, hey, I'm winning 3-0. I'm like I'm about to pull off and then like the wheels of my brain started turning, and then all of a sudden I'm like, all right, well, I'm winning, but that's not enough. I need to really impress these scouts. I'll keep attacking this guy and score more points. I want to run the scoreboard up, and I got greedy.
Yeah.
And this guy he was a very defensive wrestler. He ended up he went behind me on a couple takedown shots, and he ended up winning by 1 point. So he got the tryout for the all-Army team and made it. And anyway, so I ended up getting deployed to Mogadishu, Somalia, like a couple months after that tournament, and then one thing led to another, and I ended up not getting to, I got to wrestle maybe one or two more tournaments. But that was like my big shot, and I kind of like blew it or whatever, just I overthinking it. And I met somebody years later, right after I got out of the Army. I was working at the Nashville airport.
Okay.
And I met the guy that he was like the main guy in my weight class on the All-Army team, a guy named Derek Waldrop. Big black dude, looked like a professional bodybuilder.
All right.
We're both 198 pounders. So he was the number one guy on the All-Army team for like 14 years. That's all he did his whole time in the Army. He just got paid to wrestle.
Wow.
He was like a 4 or 5 time national champion. He won the Pan American Games. He ended up making the Olympic team and wrestled in the 1996 Olympic Games in Atlanta, Georgia.
And he's still in the military.
While he was in the military,
Wow.
he's getting paid. That's all he get. Like the Army get paid to have his own doctor. They paid for all his plane tickets, hotels, his tournament fees. They fly him to train in Europe for a month.
So would he get deployed if that happened?
No, like his job in the Army now. Once you've gotten that world class athlete program, that is your job now. It's just to train and try to make the Olympics or the world team or the national team.
Interesting.
And just go compete and train all the time.
Wow.
And he got out of the Army at the same time I did. He moved to Nashville at the same time we both got out of the Army at the same time. We both got a job at the Nashville airport. And so his last name, mine is Wade, his is Waldrop. The first day that they're hiring everybody to work at the airport, they've got everybody's new hire packets in alphabetical order. So I'm like, I walk in this big room, there's hundreds of us there, and they're like, go find your seats in alphabetical order, your hire packet is there. And I'm walking up, and there's just big, muscular black dude sitting there. I'm like, wow, that guy looks like a professional athlete or bodybuilder or whatever. So I'm like, sit down, and they do a roll call, and they call his name, and I knew his name. He had been on that world-class athlete program since I was wrestling in high school. And so, like, USA Wrestling puts out a monthly magazine with all the results from, like, the national tournament. His name, I'd been seeing his name and pictures of him, since I was growing up. I had a couple pictures of him, like, winning national championships on my wall of my bedroom. Like, I had all these top wrestling champions that I looked up to. And so when they said his name, after they called my name, they're like, Brett Wade. I'm like, here. And they're like, Derek Waldrop. He's like, here. I'm like, are you Derek Waldrop from the 96 Olympics and the All-Army wrestling team for, like, the last 14 years? And he's like, are you with Department of Homeland Security? How do you know all this information about me? I said, no, I'm a wrestler too. I was in the Army. I was trying to get on the All-Army team. We were in the same weight class or whatever. And we ended up becoming good friends. And so he's telling me all about, it took him, he tried out for the Olympic teams for the 84 Olympics, the 88 Olympics, 92 Olympics. Finally, his fourth Olympic trials, over a course of like 14, 15 years, he finally makes it. And he beats Randy Couture in order to make the Olympic, because they were in the same weight class too. Yeah. So he beats him, makes the Olympic team. And so as we become friends, we're having lunch break together every day while we're working at the Nashville airport. I'm like, hey, so we start talking more. And every day I notice when he walks to the airport for work, he sets off the metal detector. He beeps. And he's like, And he's like, yeah, I've got double hip replacement. And I got a metal ball joint, a shoulder joint replacement too. And so he's telling me the physical toll that it took. It took him that long to finally make the Olympics team, and then he didn't get a medal either. He won like 4 or 5 matches, but he got 7th place or something like that, or 6th place, and they only give medals to the top 3. And so we got to talking about it. He's like, I was like, do you have any regrets? Are you happy? I said, that's a big achievement just to make the Olympic team and get to say, hey, I competed. He's like, it is, and that was a dream, but my dream was actually being an Olympic champion, or at the very least to come away with a medal, But he's like, I really wasn't interested in a silver medal or bronze medal. I wanted that gold medal from the Olympics to say I'm an Olympic champion and nothing else. But he's like, if I couldn't get that, at least the silver or bronze is like, all right, at least I'm not coming away empty-handed. He's like, my body's all busted up. I had to have both hip replacements. I had to have a shoulder replacement surgery. And he said, he's like, I needed those surgeries about 1.5 years before the Olympics. But they told me, like, this is your last chance to make the Olympics. You've tried it, 3 other trials. Your body's busted up. He said the Army gave him his own doctor. They were injecting him with cortisone injections before every tournament so that he could compete. He still looked amazing. Like, you wouldn't know he was busted up. But he said in order for him to be able to compete at a world-class level, that's what it took. And so they said, look, you're going to have to – if you get these surgeries, your professional athletic career is over. You won't ever compete again. So he delayed it, and he's like, I played other sports too. I was good at football, baseball, track. I was just all around good athlete. And I think if I was the seventh best basketball player or football player in the world, I'd be a multimillionaire.
Yeah.
If I was the seventh best, baseball player, whatever, any other sport, I'd be rich. He's like seventh best wrestler in the world. It's like, oh, hey, you want an assistant coach job at this Division II college that pays, $40,000 or $50,000 a year. So,
well, that '96 Olympics, is that the one that Kurt Angle won?
Yes.
And he got shot with cortisone shots in the neck.
Yeah, because he had broken his neck before the trials, and then so he had to,
So he was on the same team as that guy?
Yes. Wow. Yeah, Kurt Angle was a freestyle wrestler. This guy that I'm talking about, Derek Waldrop, was a Greco-Roman wrestler. But anyways, to get to the point of the matter then, I felt like I was getting a glimpse because I had always regretted, like, man, if I should have just kept going. I was so close to getting my shot at doing this for a living. But once I do something, like, I can't let go of it. Like, I will pursue it and chase it until it's just not able to be chased anymore. So becoming friends with him, and it's almost like, and him being in the same weight class, also in the Army, he actually got to do what I wanted and got most of what I wanted. He made the Olympics. He just didn't get the medal. And then looking at the toll that it took, I'm like, all right,
him up.
Maybe that's why it wasn't meant for me to go. Like, he put, 14, 15, 16 years of his life in it. And like I said, to get right there, to almost to have part of it in your hand. Hey, I made the Olympics. I'm in the Olympic wrestling tournament, but then I didn't win it or get a medal. You know what I mean? And it's like, man, you chase that rabbit for so many years, and you just wonder, hey, like you were saying, is there any regret in your life? And that for a long time, that was one. I think meeting him, becoming friends, and it still took me several years to digest. It's like, watching the physical toll it took on his body, I'm like, all right, I probably would have chased it for as long as I could have too, and then then I would have been busted up even.
Which would have means you would have stayed in the military then, right?
Yeah, I mean, I did 10 years anyway, so just because.
You said working at the airport. Did you do TSA? Obviously TSA, right?
Yeah, I did that for like the first year that I was out of the Army, and then got back into working on helicopters as a Department of Defense contractor here at Fort Campbell.
What was the craziest thing that you've seen at TSA?
Ooh, all kinds of crazy stuff, man. Yeah. You got especially like when TSA, like I was there at the beginning, when they first took over all of the airports, you'd have people that don't speak any English, like several instances, and they don't mean any harm. For sure. But there was like some Mexican or South American construction workers that came through, had a giant bag of tools, and had a chainsaw and a 5-gallon thing of gasoline, and didn't understand why he couldn't bring that on the airplane as his carry-on. You have a lot of like Hollywood celebrities, famous actors, famous musicians, professional athletes, from like the, NFL, stuff like that come through. Mike Tyson came through one time. He had a mob of people. And,
for sure.
He was the nicest. In real life, he is like one of the nicest people I ever meet. Super nice. Everybody was sir or ma'am. He was a complete gentleman. And he was very patient because I'm like, it looked like an amoeba of people, like a mob of over 100, 150 people that followed him everywhere he went. I've never seen a famous person have that big of a crowd that followed them everywhere he went. He couldn't go anywhere. If he went to the water fountain, there was a crowd of people following him. If he went to the little newsstand to buy a pack of gum, here's 150 people following him. Hey, champ. And he was very patient and very nice to everybody. But
yeah. I would, I don't know if I could do that.
And then you have people that try to bring sex toys on or whatever. Not that that's illegal or whatever, but it comes under the X-ray machine, and it looks kind of suspicious or whatever. So someone starts doing a bag search, and all of a sudden here comes boing, this big toy or accessory or whatever, and people get embarrassed or whatever. We had people bring large amounts of drugs. Had one guy, remember the Girls Gone Wild videos?
Yeah.
The dude from Girls Gone Wild came through and had a suitcase with like probably $250,000 in cash. And it wasn't like nicely wrapped in rubber bands. It was just loose. Like you opened the suitcase and it was like $250,000 in cash. And then he had his Girls Gone Wild videos sandwiched in there too.
Yeah.
Yeah. And so we have to report anything that appears to be like a large sum of cash to DEA. And then they have to come and search, make sure they're not like, it's not drug money or cartel money or something like that.
That's crazy that TSA just happened after 9/11, and all these people, where do they come from to become TSA agents? It's like because every
Yeah.
airport had them.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's a lot of people.
So yeah, they looked for people that were military
Okay.
veterans, prior law enforcement, people that maybe used to be police officers.
Okay.
They were recruiting a lot of people that worked in prison, prison guards.
Oh yeah. Okay.
So those were like three of the fields that they were trying to recruit from, and then they also were looking for people from other walks of life too, just people that maybe young college students just graduated. Hey, I got a degree, but maybe it's in crocheting or basket weaving. What am I going to do? Oh, hey, here's a government job that's hiring and needs a lot of people.
Yeah, I have my buddy, Jeremy DeVito.
Yep, we worked together.
Yeah,
we were
exactly. He did that job for a while, and he told me some stories. The sex toys, especially. He said he saw Macho Man come to there.
Yeah, I was there with him when Macho Man came through, and we sat there, and he talks just in real life, just like he does on TV. Oh yeah, brother! And so of course people are cracking jokes like, "Hey, you gonna snap into a Slim Jim, Macho Man?" He's like, "Oh, I might,"
He played for the Cincinnati Reds.
Yeah, I knew he was a
ball player. Baseball.
I knew he was a baseball player.
Yeah.
I think a catcher. I knew he played minor league ball and college ball, and he was like a high school star with it. So, and if you're in minor leagues, you're good enough. They consider you a prospect. I didn't know if he had made it all the way to the big leagues or not.
Yeah, I think he played for the Reds. I could unless it was like a Reds farm team.
Might have been
something.
a Reds franchise,
Yeah.
but I knew he was considered a really promising baseball player.
A lot of those.
I think he had a knee injury is what ended his baseball career.
That's what I was gonna say. A lot of them wrestlers have were like either NBA stars, football, and then they get an injury, and
that's like the Road Warriors were both, like they were football stars in high school, and I think they might have even played in college for a season or two.
Brock Lesnar was a wrestler for high school and college too, right?
Yes.
Yeah.
Sure was.
That's crazy.
Yeah, he was a national champion.
Let's see. Let's see here. What? I already asked you if you can name everybody in the G-Dub guys. What was I gonna? I'm trying to think of another question to ask that I have asked already before. What is? I think this is gonna be hard because I already know how you are, Brett. Because you're like, oh man, but
okay,
you gotta think of it quick.
All right,
give me 5 comedies.
5 comedy movies that I like.
No order.
Okay, so I already said Step Brothers.
Okay, that's the one.
That's definitely one. Let's see what else. I'm gonna throw What About Bob in there.
Ooh, Bob, that's Bob Newhart, right?
What's that?
No, that's not Bob Newhart. Who's in What About Bob? What's his name?
Bill
Murray.
Yeah, Bill Murray.
Yeah.
Had a brain freeze there for a minute.
Yeah.
I was focusing on the titles, and then it froze up on the actor. Yeah, so definitely Step Brothers. Definitely What About Bob. Coming to America. Got to throw that in there.
It's classic.
That's another one we quote all the time. I think that one's hilarious. Let's see. What's some more comedies that we enjoy?
Are you an Adam Sandler fan?
I am.
Yeah.
I am.
I know some people are hit or miss with him.
Yeah. No, he's pretty funny too. I'll throw Airheads in there. That's
a classic.
Pretty good classic.
A lot of young up and comers in that movie.
Yes.
Brendan Fraser, Adam Sandler, Steve Buscemi.
And I would say Wedding Singer too. That's a pretty good one.
Yeah. My favorite Adam Sandler movie is it's a toss up between Big Daddy and Wedding Singer.
Okay.
Yeah,
it's a good one.
What was Happy Gilmore is a classic. All them early '90s ones are all classics.
I'll tell you who steals the show on Happy Gilmore though.
Oh yeah,
Ben Stiller is the crazy orderly that's like threatening Grandma.
And
he's hilarious, man.
Did you see that new Adam Sandler movie that came out, the Halloween movie, and
yes,
Ben Stiller was in it as the orderly still?
Yeah,
that was pretty cool. I like that a lot. Well, you got anything you want to ask me?
Let's see here. So I see you got your podcast up and running.
Finally.
I think I'm like maybe the 4th interview you've done.
You
so far,
are number
5 somewhere.
I think you're number 5.
Okay. So I know you had, for a couple years you've been talking about it, and so I'm glad to see that you've got this up and going now and starting. I see you've got some merch and T-shirts. Looks like you got where you can print on demand or order
Yeah,
or
yeah,
whatever.
yeah.
Thought it was a pretty cool design. So I
Yeah,
like what you're doing, man.
I appreciate
Keep
it,
up the
man.
good work, brother.
I appreciate it. My buddy, a buddy of mine drew that logo, and that's how I realized it's been 2 years that I've been trying to do this. I had to go back to my email, and it was like February of 2022. He sent me the proof of that, and I was like, "Oh yeah, cool." And then that later that year, I think I got my first mic this year. I got that in 2021. That's when I started talking to my neighbor about it. But it took me a while, and now it's finally up and running. I'm in a better place now. You got to get yourself right before you can get something you want to do off the ground.
True,
So,
true.
I think I made here in the near future might start doing music again. Talking to some people
Okay.
or somebody.
Okay.
But yeah, we'll see how that goes. Everything starts as an idea, right?
It does.
Yeah. I will say this: I enjoyed many different times of being in guerrilla warfare. I started off as the bass player, enjoyed that, and moved up to second vocals with Matt. Those were good times, really good times. And then I came back as probably 10 years later as the bass player again.
Yeah.
And then moved up with you
Yeah.
as doing vocals as well. And
Good times, man.
I will actually say this: that made me more comfortable of being in front of a crowd. Was doing it with somebody else.
Because then you don't feel like, okay, spotlight's only on me,
Yeah.
or like, hey, you've got help. You've got a 2-man hit squad up here, doing things.
We were talking about the what ifs, and I always think about that too. Like, what if, like, we were supposed to, before we moved to Clarksville, the base we were at was shutting down, and we had 3 places that we could go to. My stepdad had to choose between Fort Lewis, Washington, Fort Drum, New York, and Fort Campbell, Kentucky. And we were looking at Fort Lewis, and then he was like, I'm gonna pick Fort Campbell, and I'm like, oh, what the hell's in Fort Campbell, Kentucky?
Yeah.
But I'm glad I moved out here 30 years ago, whatever, and I've met some of the greatest people ever, man. Like,
Turned
I've
out to
met
be a good choice. Yeah.
I did, and I would, and I think about that. One, if I've never moved out here, I would have never met Mark, and I would have never started playing music with him.
Yeah.
And then playing music with them, I would have never have met you and started playing music with you. So, I think everything happens for a reason, obviously.
Yeah. I'm a big believer in that too. Like I said, even
Yeah.
though we can what if stuff to death, ultimately, wherever we're at, there was a reason for it. Whether we understand it, now, or it might be 10 or 20 years from now, or you might never understand it in this life, maybe in the next life. We'll realize what the big picture was.
I have this kid at work. I call him a kid. He's not a kid. Sorry, Jose. I know you're gonna hear this. You're not a kid. You're a grown man. Sorry. I forgot where I was going with that question now. Anywho, he wanted me to ask you why you shave your head.
Why I shave my head?
Yeah.
Just been doing it since I was in the Army. So.
He told me to ask you that. I told him I would not, but I'm going to ask it now. So he has an obsession with why people shave their heads if they're not going bald.
So I've just been doing it since I was in the Army because, like I said, I got tired of having sometimes you need a haircut because you got a morning inspection.
Yeah.
And so I'm not that great of a barber. So this was an easy style. I just kept a pair of like $15 hair clippers that I got at Walmart. I'm like, I never have to pay for a haircut again. So
Exactly.
I can just shave it all one length. And then I just kept that habit after I got out of the Army.
Yeah, it started because he was asking me if Stone Cold Steve Austin was really bald. And I was like, he was just thinning hair, so he shaved his head. And he's like, well, what about this person? What about? I was like,
yeah.
What's your obsession?
Now,
with
I mean,
bald
at this
heads?
age, I probably am thinning too. So, but I mean,
Yeah.
it's just that's what I've been doing for the
your
last
look.
25 years or whatever.
Yeah, he's actually one of the people that have actually pushed me to do this too, because he started a podcast last year about horror movies.
Ah, okay.
He never liked horror movies, but one of his friends she's really into horror movies, so he started watching horror movies. So that's kind of cool little thing.
So now you asked me earlier if I want to ask you a question.
Yeah.
Talking about horror movies, I have a question for you. What are your top 5 horror movies? Your personal ones, the ones that you like. Whether it's a guilty pleasure horror movie or just
All right,
one that maybe it's lesser known
okay.
or people don't know about, or
I'm not gonna pick I'm gonna pick
Ones that you just really like
Well,
that you
I'm
can
gonna,
watch again and again.
Well, no, I mean, I'm gonna say Trick or Treat,
Okay.
the original
With
Ozzy.
yes.
Yes, that one.
Don't forget Gene Simmons is in it.
Yeah, he played the priest. No,
And Skippy from what was that show he was on? Was it
Family Ties?
Yeah.
Yep. Trick or Treat, and Fastway did the soundtrack.
Yes, they did.
Okay, I'm gonna say
Killer soundtrack too.
And the singer from Fastway went on to play in what band?
The Flogging Molly.
Yep.
Yeah. I was gonna say the band that sounds like Dropkick Murphys, kind of, but they have their own sound.
Well, their accordion player is Matt Hensley, who was a professional skateboarder.
Ah, nice.
All right, so I'm gonna say Trick or Treat.
Okay, that's a good one.
And then I can't pick one movie, so I'm gonna say the Nightmare on Elm Street franchise.
Nice.
I will say The Gate.
Okay, that's a good one.
The Gate.
I saw that at the theater when it first came out.
That's a great one. Shocker.
That's a good one.
And last one, I want to go with the first Child's Play.
Okay.
But any of the Child's Play.
Me and my family just watched the original Child's Play, not that long, maybe 2 weeks ago.
Still hold up?
Still holds up.
Okay. Did you see the Mark Hamill Child's Play? I think it was Mark Hamill that did the voice. It was probably about 6 years ago. It was a new movie.
I don't think I did. I don't think I saw the new one.
Had Bluetooth, had cameras in the eyes. It was
the high tech Chucky.
Yeah, and but they is it Sci-Fi that did the new season? They have the Chucky series out.
Okay,
and that's really good. I think it's season 2 or 3 is out now. It's really good. And it's the
seen
original. It starts out with kids at a garage sale.
Oh, okay.
And what's he see?
Then they find the good guy's doll or whatever.
Yep. So yeah. I'm not really a horror guy, but those are the ones I watch. You know what I'm saying?
I like the older ones more than the newer ones. I think there's like more suspense and storytelling. Like I like a lot of the old John Carpenter movies, like The Thing.
Yeah.
The Fog, the original Halloween movies. Those first 3. A lot of people hate on Halloween 3, but I think that's an interesting one too, even though Michael Myers isn't in it.
I always wanted Michael Myers and Jason Voorhees to do a movie. I mean, I know we got Jason versus Freddy. That was cool. But I would like to have seen Jason and
what if someone did it as a horror comedy instead of it's Michael Myers versus Jason Voorhees? They're there, but they're killing and they're talking smack to each other, and then they're also like talking to each other, like giving compliments if they kill someone at interesting. Like, oh, good move, bro. Check this out. I'm gonna take this guy's head off and use it like a basketball.
That would probably.
They've never done a team up movie like that I'm aware of. Anyway,
I could see that being a Wayans brother movie.
There we go.
Well, Brett, this was fun.
I had a good time too. Enjoyed talking with you and having a good interview, man.
I am looking forward to hearing this new G-Dub.
Hey, me too. Can't wait.
You hear it all the time.
I hear it at practice when we're playing it, but I want to hear the actual recordings. When we get them done.
Well, one question I have real quick: where is there to play, really?
So, still lots of places in Nashville, but as far as here in Clarksville right now, I would say the Pea Patch is starting to have metal shows like once a month. Mm-hmm. Revel House is still occasionally doing it. They'll do some metal or hard rock shows once in a while. And then this Wicked Good Sandwiches in the past has done some, and then so hopefully maybe if this show goes well here with that we're playing Saturday, April 27th, maybe that will revive them being able to have some heavier music come through and do a show. If not once a month, maybe once a quarter, maybe every 3 or 4 months or something like that.
Are you guys going to try to play a lot? Are you just going to play whenever y'all can? I mean, I know you guys thought everyone has different,
Yeah,
careers.
At this point in life, maybe once a month would be, good, or every other month. Like I said, we all are busy with work and families and stuff like that. So, like I said, if we can do a show once a month or every other month, I'm fine with that.
And Steve no longer in the military?
He's not in the military anymore, so he's out. He's got a regular civilian job, growing a beard out, almost as long as mine, and growing his hair out. So yeah, he's doing pretty good.
Good guy right there. You got.
Heck yeah.
Steve. All right, Brett. Well, I appreciate you, man.
All right, brother. Appreciate you too. Thanks for having me on, and keep doing what you're doing with the podcast. Thanks, brother.
Keep on keeping on.
All right.